Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Recite another salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ajil farajah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, please recite a second loud salawat. For the hastening and the return of our beloved 12th Imam, please recite a third final loud salawat. I want to express my gratitude for being here again with the St. Louis community. A lot of familiar faces, some new faces as well, but a lot of familiar faces, especially the younger guys. They look much older now. Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy to be back, inshallah. Hopefully what's said tonight and throughout Sunday night is, inshallah, to the benefit of the listeners and the speaker himself as well. I want to start with introducing tonight's topic, and that is the topic of spiritual freedom. I'll start from here. When you look at this movement of Imam Hussein, you look at when he started his movement all the way till he got to a point where he became shaheed, and then of course the movement continued afterwards after that. You find that there are different situations, different instances where the Imam starts to explain about his movement. He says certain things. There are certain narrations mentioned that in this particular situation, this is what the Imam said, or in that particular situation, that's what the Imam said. Some of these lines that the Imam says, they're smaller lines, they're less important, and then some of them are even more important than the other ones. Some of these sentences, even though it might be a dialogue that he's having with another person, it might be in the middle of a conversation that he's having with another person, but you can tell that this line that he is saying in this conversation is introducing his whole movement. It's not just a line that he's saying in a conversation with his friend or a companion or Ibn Abbas or anyone else that he's talking to. No, this line is a critical line in the sense that it introduces the whole movement of Imam Hussein. For example, we know that before Imam Hussein started to leave Mecca to come towards Kufa, and then he ended up in Karbala, he had that famous line where he said, "Inni lam akhruj ashiran wala batira." I'm not leaving Mecca, I'm not going out to start corruption, I'm not trying to do any of that. Wala mufsidan wala zalima, I'm not trying to take away the rights of anyone. إنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي. I'm trying to come to modify and solve the problems that we have in this ummah of my grandfather. This is a line that the Imam has mentioned. It's more than just a line. It's introducing the whole movement of Imam Hussein. Okay, now that we understand this, when you look a little bit deeper into what Imam Hussein was saying on this path all the way till Karbala, you find that there's one particular concept. It keeps coming up over and over and over again. It's one of those reoccurring themes in the talks of Imam Hussein. What concept is this? That is the concept of spiritual freedom. Where does Imam Hussein talk about this? He talks about it, for example, on the 10th of Ashura, when they were starting to surround him, and every one of the companions had gone to the battlefield. They were surrounding him. He heard that they're going to attack the tents. What did he say? He said, "In lam yakun lakum deen fakunu ahraran." At least be free. Have your spiritual freedom. Or even a better line where the Imam talks about this is this, that when he's trying to introduce what has happened to him, why he's in this situation that he's in, he said, "Ala ibn ad-da'i," this person he was referring to the parents of that person, Yazid. This person, he has placed us bayna sillati wa dhillah. What is silla? Silla means when you take out your sword from its cover, they call it salla. بين السلة, which means war and fighting, والذلة, and humiliation. وهيهات منا الذلة, and humiliation is far away from us. We're not even going to come close to humiliation. Again, he's talking about what? Humiliation. He's saying what? I have spiritual freedom. I'm not going to be humiliated. No one is going to tell me what to do and what not to do. So the spiritual freedom comes up over and over and over again in the hadith and in the sentences of Imam Hussein. What we want to do tonight, inshallah, is dissect this spiritual freedom a little bit more. What is this spiritual freedom? People say spiritual freedom, they don't even understand what is it. Number one, first question I want to answer. What is this spiritual freedom? When you have spiritual freedom, what are you free from? When you say, I'm free, that means there's something that's trying to get you. There's something that's trying to captivate you. When you say, I have spiritual freedom, what is it that's trying to captivate you? What is it that's trying to take away that freedom that you have? That's the first question we have. Number two, what are the different stages to a person who has spiritual freedom? And the different stages of a person who has started to lose his spiritual freedom. There are different levels. Most of us might fall under the first or second level. Then there's a third level sometimes. So a person who has his spiritual freedom, or even a person who's losing his spiritual freedom, they come at different levels. That's the second question that we have to answer. And number three, what examples do we have from the lives of the companions of the Imam and some of our Maraja even, who showed what this spiritual freedom is like? And what examples do we have from those who went against Imam Hussein, who had lost that spiritual freedom? What did that look like in their day-to-day lives? These are the three questions that we'll be trying to provide answers to tonight, inshallah. Recite aloud salawat. All right, we say this spiritual freedom. What is this spiritual freedom? If they ask you, brother, you're a free person, you say, yes, I'm free. Ask the brother, are you free? He said, yes, I'm free. What does that mean? That means I get to do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it. If I'm hungry now, I eat. No one can stop me. I'm free. If I'm thirsty, I'm going to drink. No one can stop me. No one can tell me what to do. Whatever I want, I do it when I want to do it. This is what we call freedom. Okay, that makes sense. The problem is, and this is where this discussion starts to get a little delicate. Okay, so if you dissect that, that basically means what? That means you have desires, you have wants in your heart. Anytime one of those desires comes and knocks on your door and says, hey, I'm here, I'm here. You say, oh, you're hungry? Okay, we're going to eat. Why? Because I'm free. I have freedom, the desires. This is where things get a little delicate. These freedoms, these desires that we have, that we fulfill and we point to ourselves, we say, I'm free. You see, no one could stop me when I was doing this thing. I'm free. This same desire that is the source of your freedom, if you don't take care of it, slowly, it becomes the source of losing your freedom. How? Because when you have this desire, the first time you fulfill it, it's fine, you're free. Then you continue fulfilling it, it turns into what we call a habit. Still not horrible. Habits aren't bad. You have good habits, bad habits. Habits aren't bad. And then you continue down this road a little bit more. It turns from a habit into what we call an addiction. Give you an example, right? Very simple, basic example that we can all relate to. The first time you have coffee, how do you feel? You wake up in the morning, you have a desire to drink some coffee. You put the coffee, you drink the coffee, you feel you have so much energy. Caffeine is running through your body. You say, wow, this is so great. I should drink coffee every morning. So then you start doing that naturally. It turns into what? It turns into a habit. And that's fine. And then you fulfill that desire so much that little by little you get addicted to coffee. How do you get addicted to coffee? You get so addicted to coffee that if you don't drink it, you're going to have problems. Now before, if you didn't drink it, you would say, oh, I'm fine, but I had a little bit of less energy. Now if you don't drink it, you can't even get through your day now. So you see that same source of freedom, which was your desire, if you keep fulfilling it over and over again, what happens? That same thing turns into the source of what? Of your captivity. You're the type of person that eats anything and everything that they put in front of him. After a while, this turns into an addiction. then you can't stop yourself. Anything they put in front of you, you're willing to take it. At the beginning, it was a habit. You continue to fulfill it so much, now it turned into what? It turned into an addiction. When Islam says spiritual freedom, Islam is saying you have to free yourself from the desires that you have. How do you do that? This is where it sounds a little bit like a contradiction, but it's not. If you want to be free, you have to limit yourself. Doesn't make sense, because if you want to be free, there should be no limitations. But that's how this world works. You want to be free, you have to do what? You have to limit yourself. How much am I supposed to limit myself? That's what Islam is there for. Islam will take every aspect of your life and tell you how much do you have to limit yourself with each and every aspect to make sure that that source of freedom does not turn into your source of captivity. The opposite gender, you want to spend time with the opposite gender? That's fine. You have to limit it. You want to eat? That's fine. You have to limit it. You want to drink? That's fine. You have to limit it. Every aspect of your life, Islam will tell you, up until this point is fine. From this point on, it's going to flip on you. It's going to turn into a means of your addiction. Recite a salawat, please. The problem is, in this society that we live in, they don't understand that each and every one of these desires that we have can turn into an addiction. When we say the word addiction, in our minds, and especially the younger guys, what's the first thing that comes to our mind when we say addiction? It's drugs. So this person is addicted. They say, oh, he's addicted to drugs. In this culture, they don't understand what it means to have other addictions. For example, if you have an addiction to grabbing any type of money that you can, at any cost, even if it means ruining the life of another person, they don't have a word for it. They don't call it an addiction in this country, in this culture. They call it success. Some of these corporate people, this person is willing to do anything to get that extra amount, anything to drive up the numbers. Even if he's going to ruin the lives of other people, he doesn't care. Why? Because in this culture, this is not seen as an addiction. This is seen as what? This is seen as success. Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon. This person, he's willing to do anything, put out millions of businesses. For what? So that I can have control over everything. Did they call him an addiction? Did they call him he's addicted? No. They say what? He is successful. And in many ways he is successful, of course. But then Islam says, no, this is going too far. This is actually an addiction. Now, if you have a word for it or you don't have a word for it, that's your problem. But Islam considers this what? Considers this a sickness and an illness where you're willing to ruin the lives of people to do what? To gain this extra money. We don't have a word for it in English. If you have an addiction, a desire to attract attention towards yourself at any given cost, they don't have a word for it in this culture. They don't call that an addiction. They say, oh look, he's so successful on social media. But if he's willing to do things that sometimes are obscene, forgive me, sometimes they're disrespectful, sometimes different things. If you're willing to do it, they say, oh look, he's successful. He's drawn such a big crowd around him. MashaAllah. They don't say he's addicted. No. Islam considers all of these what? Addictions. Recite a salawat, please. One more salawat, please. Why is this? Why do they not have these words? Because slowly they are trying to figure out these things. This culture here, I'm saying this to the younger guys, the culture here, it's not perfect. They still don't know what they're doing. As time goes on, they start to figure out things. Islam 1400 years ago said that if you look at something that's haram, you're going to get addicted to doing that. But now, slowly they're starting to realize this. In the time of our fathers, they didn't understand. If you said this person has an addiction to looking at haram things, they wouldn't understand that. They would know this is not an addiction. This is a desire that this person has. Now, slowly, they have started to understand it. Why? Because 50 years ago, when you wanted to fulfill this desire that you had to turn into an addiction, you had to do so much work. For example, God forbid, you wanted to gamble 50 years ago. What did you have to do? do? You had to go put on your clothes, and then you had to go grab the keys to your car, and then you had to sit in your car and drive for half an hour, 45 minutes to go downtown or whatever. I don't know where the casinos are in St. Louis, right? And of course the brother is going to act like they don't know either. You had to drive all the way over there. You had to spend so much money, and then you had to drive all the, you had to do all these steps, undo all of these steps that I just talked about. Just for what? Just gambling for half an hour, 2 hours, whatever the case may be. Today, that's not how it works anymore. Today, you have a device, it's right there. The gambling is right there. You can do it so easy. It's very cheap, actually. Because so many people are doing it, it's so much cheaper now to do it. Because fulfilling the desires has become so much quicker, these habits are turning into addictions a lot quicker as well. Before, if you wanted to have an addiction with gambling, it would take you 20 years. Now it takes a couple years. That's why when you look at the statistics in this country, they say the second or sometimes the first growing addiction in the United States is what? It's a gambling addiction. As crazy as that sounds to me and you who've never dealt with this stuff, it's a gambling. Why? Because now you can fulfill that desire so quickly. 50 years ago, it wasn't like this. Now we have set the stage. We understand what is a spiritual freedom. It means that when these desires come, they knock on your door, you say, no, I don't want to listen to you right now. I don't want to look at this haram thing right now. I want to do something else. Your desires do not force you to make any decisions. You are the one who is making these decisions. This is that spiritual freedom that Imam Hussein keeps talking about. Have hurriyat, be hur. What does it mean to be hur? It means that when you know something is wrong, you have enough freedom that when your desire comes and tells you to do that haram thing, you say, no, I decide. I make the decisions here. And you stay away from it. This is the first level of spiritual freedom. A person who, when it comes to his desires, he's able to say no and stay away from it. Recite salawat, please. One more salawat, please. So that's the first answer to the first question. Second question was this: what are the different stages of having spiritual freedom and the different stages of losing your spiritual freedom? The different stages of having that freedom inside of you and the different stages of losing that and becoming a captive. Okay, I'll start from here. There are 3 stages in which you start to lose your spiritual freedom. The first stage is very clear. Shaitan comes, he knocks on your door. Yes, who is it? Is Sheikh Mahdi home? Yes. What do you want? There's this haram thing. Can you go ahead and do it, please? A shaitan knocking on your door asking you to do haram. If you have spiritual freedom, you say no to him. If you don't have spiritual freedom, you say yes to him. That's the first level. But then, this is the point that a lot of people don't understand. If you continue down this road, and when your desires come to you, your shaitan comes to you and says, do this or do that, you listen to him, then you enter into a second level. And this one is worse than the before one. What is the second level? The second level is this. Shaitan no longer knocks on your door to ask you to do something haram. You're already doing haram. Shaitan will tell you how to do it better. Huh? This is a different level. Like the first time shaitan comes and tells you, go steal this money. You say, oh, well, okay, fine. You go and do it. Next time, after a while, it turns into a habit for you. You've already lost your spiritual freedom. Now he comes, he tells you, listen, you're going to steal that money anyways. They're going to lose that money anyways. But you know, if you do it like this, then you can steal millions instead of thousands. See the difference? You're already doing the haram. He comes and whispers in your ears tips how you're supposed to do it even better. This is what happened during the time of the Muslims at the beginning of the emerge of Islam. These Muslims, they came out with a ruling. They said, whenever you want to eat some meat, it has to be slaughtered properly. What is slaughtered properly? It means that the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be mentioned when they are slaughtering this animal. Okay, this was the ruling of the Muslims. Some of these mushrikeen came up with an argument. They said, we'll do you one even better. They said, what do you mean even better? They said, you guys eat the meat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name is mentioned upon. We'll do even something better than that for you. So what does that mean? How can you do better than that for us? So we'll do even better. We eat the meat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself slaughters. So what do you mean Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself slaughters? Say, well, you know these animals when they die, who kills them? Say, God kills them, of course. Say, well, so when we eat the meat of these animals that are dead, actually, who has killed this animal? God has killed. So it's like God slaughtered these animals anyways. Now that seems laughable to us, and it should be laughable to us. But this was important for the Muslims at that time, so much so that it made its way into the verses of the Quran. The Quran said this. The Quran said, listen, when they come to you and they tell you these types of arguments, the type of arguments where you think to yourself and you say, how on earth did this person come up with this? Know that this person himself did not come up with this. Shaitan whispered this argument into his ears. This person was already going to go against you, Muslims. Shaitan is now coming to him and telling him what argument he can use to make a better point, to do his job in a better way. That's why the verses of the Quran say, وَإِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ لَيُوحُونَ إِلَىٰ أَوْلِيَائِهِمْ. The shayateen, some of them, they don't whisper to tell these guys to do bad things. These guys are already going to do their bad things. They whisper to them so that they do things in a better way. They tell them different arguments. These arguments, they bring them, they do jadal with you, they argue with you. And then you're like, wait a second, how on earth did you think of that? Because he didn't think of that. Because Shaitan told him that. And you can be sure that in this society, in this country that we live in, there are definitely people who are just like that as well. That they have passed this first level of losing their spiritual freedom. They have now reached a level where Shaitan comes and tells them what to say. Shaitan whispers in their ears not to do bad. They're already doing the bad. How to do the bad so that others cannot stop them. How they can do the most harm. Recite salawat, please. This is the second level of losing your spiritual freedom. Then comes a third level. This level is even worse. This level is a level where Shaitan doesn't just come to you and tell you how to do things. Now Shaitan starts to live with you. You do haram so many times, you don't repent from it, that you reach a point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pay attention to this. This is a little bit scary what I'm about to mention. It's a little scary. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appoints a shaitan for you. Let's pause there. He appoints a shaitan for you. Who does this? God does this. It's kind of odd based on what we know from God. Like he wouldn't do something. No. In the verses of the Quran, he says this. If someone goes on this road, keeps going and going and going, he keeps doing haram and he doesn't repent, it comes to a point where we ourselves appoint another shaitan for him to misguide him even more. No, that gets scary. Because now your evil starts to grow exponentially. Right? Exponentially means that not only are you growing, you start growing at a faster and faster rate as time goes by. Pay attention to these verses of the Quran. It says, وَمَنْ يَعْشَ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ. Whoever turns away from the remembrance of Ar-Rahman, which is just another name that God calls himself. Whoever turns away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, نُقَيِّذْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا. We place for him a shaitan. فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. And this guy spends time with him. Qareen means someone that you are acquainted with. You spend time with. And then the Quran says this. He doesn't know a shaitan is spending time with him day and night. When he's having his meal, a shaitan is sitting there with him, having his meal with him. He doesn't know that when he's sleeping, he's rolling around in the middle of the night. This shaitan is also spending time with him. Until he comes on the day of judgment, he sees, oh, there's been a shaitan with me. And this shaitan looks so horrible to him that he turns to this shaitan. He says, oh my God, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَنَا. When they come to us on the day of judgment, قَالَ يَا لَيْتَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ بُعْدَ الْمَشْرِقَيْنِ. I wish you weren't even close to me. But this guy, he's just realizing that for the 20, 30, 50 years that he's been living his life, this shaitan has been with him every second of the way. He has been breathing with a shaitan. This is the third level. This is different from the shaitans that we normally have. The shaitans that we normally have, they're there. And there's two of them. Hadith says that every human being that is born, shaitan appoints two of his grandchildren to be in charge of this person. You have two angels with you. You have two of shayateen with you as well. He appoints. One of them is born. You two go. Go take care of him. This is different. This is when you reach a point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts to appoint a shaitan to you. And there's a reason for this, and it's completely compatible with the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a discussion I don't want to go into right now. These are the 3 levels of losing your spiritual freedom. What examples do we have from this? One of the prime examples, best examples of a person who lost his spiritual freedom was an individual who was in Karbala by the name of Umar ibn Sa'd. Who was Umar ibn Sa'd? Umar ibn Sa'd was the head of the army of Yazid. Yazid never came to Karbala. He wasn't there. He was in Sham. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad didn't come to Karbala. He was in Kufa. Who came to Karbala? Umar ibn Sa'd came to Karbala, right? Of course, he had some other guys, like Shimr was there with him, right? And of course, many other troops. But the head of this army was who? Was Umar ibn Sa'd. Who was Umar ibn Sa'd? Was he a horrible person from the very beginning? No, Umar ibn Sa'd was not like that. Umar ibn Sa'd actually respected the family of the Ahlul Bayt. That's not how he started out. Umar ibn Sa'd only had an addiction. He had an addiction to governing a city. That's all he wanted. In fact, he wasn't even supposed to be in Karbala. He was supposed to go to the city of Ray. The city of Ray was a huge thing back in the day. Big city. A lot of tax was being paid. He just wanted to sit there. People come and pay their taxes, and he lives a lavish life. That's all Umar ibn Sa'd wanted. He had this desire. So what happened? Why did he end up killing Imam Hussein on the 10th of Ashura? Why did all of this happen? Because Umar ibn Sa'd had this desire. Yazid found out about it. He said, fine, I'll give you Ray. Umar ibn Sa'd got on his horse with his army. They were going to start to head out towards where? Towards the city of Ray. They were not even going to go to Karbala. Before they head out, Yazid's a letter came to him that Fulani, Imam Hussein is coming here. He said, oh, Umar ibn Sa'd, I know you want to take care of Ray and all that stuff, but you can't do that. I'm not going to give you Ray unless you go to Karbala and you get rid of Hussein. He said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be part of it. I don't want to kill Imam Hussein. He said, I don't know. You want Ray? You have this desire. You have this addiction, in my words. I'm going to dangle this addiction in front of you until you listen to me. He said, okay, well, I'll go. He went to Karbala. When he got to Karbala, you know that for a long time, Umar ibn Sa'd didn't want to confront the army of the Imam. He didn't want to fight the Imam. That's why we know Imam Hussein got to Karbala. Which day of Muharram? First, second day of Muharram, roughly. He got to Karbala. What day of Muharram did the Imam become Shaheed? The 10th of Muharram. What was going on for 8 days? For 8 days, Umar ibn Sa'd didn't want to do anything. For 8 days, he was on the fence. For 8 days, Yazid kept writing letters back to him and him back to Yazid that, listen, I'm trying to work out something with Imam Hussein. I'm trying to figure out some sort of a negotiation because I don't want to kill Imam Hussein. That's what he said in many of his letters to Yazid. It reached a point so much so that until the 10th of Ashura, Yazid wrote him a letter. He said, listen, either you take care of it or give it to Shimr. Shimr is more than happy to lead the army against Hussein. If you can't take care of it, let him, and if you don't take care of it, there's not going to be any ray for you. This is addiction. He dangled it in front of him until it came to a point where Umar ibn Sa'd, even though he was on the fence for so many days, it came a point where on the 10th of Ashura, he took an arrow. He was the first one to shoot that arrow towards the tents of Imam al-Hussein, and he pointed to everyone. He said, everyone, look, I was the one who started this fight. Why? Because he knew that if he didn't do that, he was not going to get the governance of the city of Ray. When you lose your spiritual freedom, that's what happens. People find out, they start to dangle your addiction in front of your eyes, and then you become their slaves. You're willing to do anything and everything that they ask of you to do. Recite a salawat, please. This is what happens when you lose your spiritual freedom. And then there are those who know they have their spiritual freedom. These people, they also have 3 different stages. The first stage is this. They have enough spiritual freedom that when it comes to their actions, they're able to make decisions based on what they want to do, not their desires. They don't allow their desires to come and make this. So what they're able to do is they're able to control their actions. Okay, this is the first level. And the first level is actually very difficult as it is. Then this person, if he continues down this road a little bit more, he reaches a second level. The second level is where he is able to control his thoughts now as well. Meaning that the thought of haram will not come to his mind anymore. This is the second level. And these are difficult. I'm not claiming that we should be like this or we have to be like, no, these are difficult. Just to explain how spiritual freedom is like, what it looked like. And then there's a third level. This third level is interesting. Shahid Mutahari says that when a person reaches this third level of spiritual freedom, not only is he able to control his actions, and not only is he able to control his thoughts, he is also able to control the things around him in the world. He's able to control the walls around him. He's able to control the earth that he walks on. He's able to control the trees that he sees around him. He's able to control the air that he breathes. He's able to control the water that he drinks. This is the third level of spiritual freedom. Allow me to share one story from one marja who had this spiritual freedom, and then you and I see how this spiritual freedom, how it gave so many benefits to all of Islam, really, particularly the Shia school of thought. Recite a salawat, please. This is a story, and it's one of my favorite stories actually, about a marja by the name of Ayatollah Kuh Kamarei. This was a marja in the city of Najaf. Najaf was the center of Islamic studies at that time. Ayatollah Kuh Kamarei, he's a marja in Najaf, which is like a big thing, because when you're in marja and you're in Najaf, you open your mouth and people are willing to give their lives for you, as they are. Like Ayatollah Sistani says things, people are willing to give their lives. Ayatollah Kuh Kamarei, he has his class. Of course, if you're the marja, you have your daily class. You go to the masjid and you teach your class. And you have hundreds of students come, they sit and they listen to you. Ayatollah Kuh Kamarei, he's going into his class one day. And when he's going to his class one day, he comes early to the masjid one time and he sees, oh, there's this other sheikh, he's sitting there in the corner. And his clothing is a little bit used and worn out, but I mean, he's sitting there and he has like 3 or 4 people sitting around him. Who was this person? This person was a person by the name of Sheikh Ansari. Okay, just remember that name, Sheikh Ansari. Sheikh Ansari, who was Sheikh Ansari? No one knew who Sheikh Ansari was yet, because he was a sheikh who was going to different cities. He was traveling. He would learn from different teachers, and now he had come to the city of Najaf. He had a lot of knowledge, but he was not well known in the city. He was not a marja. He was none of this stuff. He was young, not very well known, but very knowledgeable. He's sitting in that corner and 3 or 4 people are sitting around there. They're listening to him. Ayatollah Kuh Kamarei comes, this marja. He says, oh, that sheikh is sitting over there. He says, I'm early anyways. Students aren't here yet. Might as well go and sit in the class of this sheikh and see what he's teaching. If it was us, we would say, oh, I'm early anyway, so I'll just grab my phone and play with my phone a little bit. But no, the marja said, what? I'm going to make use of my time. I'm going to go sit and learn a little bit. So he goes, he sits in the class of Sheikh Ansari. Okay. And of course, Sheikh Ansari is not well known. No one knows who's Sheikh Ansari. So he sits there. But the moment he sits in the class of Sheikh Ansari, he is blown away. He sits there, he's like, oh, okay, that's a good point. Oh, I didn't even know that one. Okay. Well, no, you're wrong about that one. But, oh no, he's right about that one actually. And he just sits there and he's blown away by the teaching of Sheikh Ansari. Nothing happens. He goes home, he teaches his own class, he goes home. Second day, he comes early on purpose. Sees Sheikh is sitting there again. He goes, he sits behind the class of Sheikh Ansari. He sits there, he listens again. Oh, it wasn't just luck yesterday. No, this guy is good. He knows what he's talking about. In fact, the stuff he's talking about, I don't even know about. Some marja in Najaf. I don't even know about. He comes, he sits the next day. Again, he's blown away. Third day, same thing happens. Fourth day, his students come, they sit in his class. Look at the spiritual freedom. When you're able to say no to your desires. You're able to say no to your arrogance. He says he comes, he sat like in a gathering like this, 50, 100 people waiting for their teacher to start their class. He said, no, I'm not teaching today. Why? You're marja, you have to teach this, that. Said, no, we're going to go sit in that class today. That class, there's only like 3 people in that class. He says, listen, I sat in that class the other days. I know who Sheikh Ansari is. He's a big guy. He is blown away with his knowledge. We have to go and sit in the class of who? Of Sheikh Ansari. They say he took his whole class, gathered them, so we're going to go sit in the class of Sheikh Ansari. This marja, you know how difficult that is to do, brothers and sisters? I'm a speaker. There are like 100 people listening to me. I can't say, oh, this person knows more than me. You're a father, you're a mother, people know you. If you were to say this person knows better, it's difficult for you. You can't say, this is a marja that thousands of people are willing to give their lives for. He has enough spiritual freedom to say, no, my class is not the right class. I'm wasting your time. We have to go sit in the class of who? Of Sheikh Ansari. He took his whole class. They sat in the class of Sheikh Ansari, who is, by the way, younger than him. And then after a while, Sheikh Ansari got to be known within the city. Then he turned into the marja. He turned into the main person in Najaf. So much so that today, any students of the hawzas who reaches advanced level of studies, they have to study the books of who? Of Sheikh Ansari. Makasib of Sheikh Ansari, it's a well-known book. If a person hasn't reached that level, they're intermediate studies. Once you reach advanced studies, you have to read the books of who? Of Sheikh Ansari. These are books that are taught in Najaf. These are books that are taught in Qom. All of these marajat that you have today, all of them have studied the books of who? Of Sheikh Ansari. Why? Because another marja had enough spiritual freedom inside of him to say no to his own desire. When he said no to his own desire, this opened up an ocean of benefits for the Muslim ummah. This is an example of a person who has been able to preserve that spiritual freedom that Imam Hussein keeps talking about. If the brothers and sisters dim the lights, inshallah we will prepare ourselves to hear a little bit of the masa'ib of our beloved fourth Imam. We know that these days and nights are dedicated to the tragedy and the shahadat of our beloved fourth Imam. What a difficult musibah this is. What a difficult masa'ib to recite this is. We know that this Imam of ours, the fourth Imam, was a very gharib Imam. If we wanted to describe the fourth Imam, you could only describe him with the word gharib, lonely. This family has been lonely before Karbala. This family has been lonely throughout Karbala. This family has been lonely since the point came where Hussein said, Hal min nasirin yansurani. From that point onwards, Sajjad and Zainab and al-Baneen, all of this family has been so gharib in the city of Medina. And this Imam of ours has not only witnessed the tragedy of Karbala, he has witnessed the masa'ib that this family went through as they went through the city of Kufa and the city of Sham. That's why when they asked Imam as-Sajjad about the most difficult part of this whole trip, he didn't point to Karbala. He said Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham. 3 times he said Sham was the most difficult for the family of the Ahlul Bayt. Let's take our hearts to the city of Medina, where this beloved Imam of ours has passed away. Allow me to share one of the narrations about the shahadat of Imam as-Sajjad. The narrator says that the day came where we heard about the shahadat of Imam as-Sajjad. We heard that the Imam has become shaheed. Imam al-Baqir, this young man, he came, he brought the body of Imam as-Sajjad to start to wash the body of Imam as-Sajjad. They say that they put up a curtain between the body and the people, and they say Imam al-Baqir started to slowly remove the clothes from the body of Imam as-Sajjad. Imagine the pain in the heart of this child as he starts to move away the clothing of his father. Slowly he started to move away the clothing, and this narrator says that at one point we heard that Imam al-Baqir started to cry hard and hard behind the curtain. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know why Imam al-Baqir all of a sudden started to cry so hard. He said that I didn't say anything. I thought that it's because he's missing Imam as-Sajjad. It's because he's missing his father. He says a couple days later I saw Imam al-Baqir. I said, Ya Imam al-Baqir, you were removing clothing from the body of Imam as-Sajjad, and then you started to cry so hard. What is it that you saw? Was it that you were missing your father now that he's passed away? He said, no, Ya Jabir, listen, it wasn't because I missed my father. I already knew my father had passed away. When I started to remove remove this clothing from the body of Imam as-Sajjad, what I saw was marks on his body, marks on his hands, marks on his arms, marks on his legs, on his body. And the moment I saw these marks on the body of Imam as-Sajjad, I knew that these are not the marks from his ibadah, these are not the marks from him carrying heavy weights to the poor people in the city of Medina. No, these are marks from the chains and the shackles that they put on his body when they were moving him from Karbala through the city of Kufa and through the city of Sham. These are the marks and the reminders of Karbala that Imam as-Sajjad has been carrying with him. Anywhere Imam as-Sajjad goes, he is reminded of Karbala. He is reminded of the tragedy of Karbala. But let us take our hearts, brothers and sisters, to the city, to the plains of Karbala as well. In the plains of Karbala, there are not bodies that have marks on them. No, bodies go in the plains of Karbala, they come back in pieces. It's no longer a matter of marks on the body. It's no longer a matter of wounds on this body. One of these bodies that went in the plains of Karbala and it returned in pieces was the body of Ali al-Akbar. What a difficult musibah this was for Imam al-Hussein. Just imagine that moment where Hussein is in his tent. All of his companions have gone to the battlefield already. They say Ali al-Akbar started to make his way around towards the tent of Hussein, and Hussein already knows why Ali al-Akbar is coming to the tent. Imagine that moment where Hussein looks in the eyes of Ali al-Akbar and he knows Ali al-Akbar is there to ask for permission. He's there to go to the battlefield. They say Hussein, the moment his own child came, very quickly he gave permission to Ali al-Akbar. فَاسْتَأْذَنَ أَبَاهُ فَأَذَنَ لَهُ. Very quickly he gave permission to Ali al-Akbar. But you know that this was difficult for Imam al-Hussein. They say as Ali al-Akbar was walking away from the tent of Hussein, Imam al-Hussein came towards the entrance of the tent. He was watching Ali al-Akbar walk away. His eyes were full of tears. ثُمَّ نَظَرَ إِلَيْهِ نَظْرَةَ آيِسٍ مِّنْ. He looked at Ali al-Akbar without any hope, with a look full of sadness, a look full of grief. He knows Ali al-Akbar is not going to make it throughout this day. And then he held up his arms in the sky. He said, Allahumma shahad, Ya Allah, you be witness. فَقَدْ بَرَزَ إِلَيْهِمْ غُلَامٌ. Now I have sent my young child towards them. He is the one who looks just like the Prophet. He is the one who walks and talks just like the Prophet. وَكُنَّا إِذَا اشْتَقْنَا إِلَىٰ رَسُولِكَ نَظَرْنَا إِلَيْهِ. Anytime we miss your Prophet, we used to look at Ali al-Akbar inside the house. Anytime we miss Muhammad, we used to look at Ali al-Akbar inside the house. This was so difficult for Hussein as Ali al-Akbar goes closer and closer to the battlefield that he called out to Umar ibn Sa'ad, Ya Umar ibn Sa'ad, قَتَعَ اللَّهُ رَحِمَكَ كَمَا قَتَعَتَ رَحِمِي. May Allah do to you, do to your heart what you are doing to my heart, Umar ibn Sa'ad. We know Ali al-Akbar went to the battlefield. He came back, he turned to his father. He said, Father, وَثِقْلُ الْحَدِيدِ قَدْ أَجْهَدَنِي. The thirst is killing me. The heaviness of this armor is killing me. My father, do you have any water to give me? Do you have any water to assist me? They say Hussein had nothing to give his child. He was embarrassed in front of Ali al-Akbar. He said, Ya Ali, go back to the battlefield, وَقَاتِلْ قَلِيلًا, and fight a little bit more. Soon you will see my grandfather. He will come. He will quench the thirst that you have. They say Ali al-Akbar went back to the battlefield again. He started to fight and fight. They surrounded him and they struck him on the head. Ali al-Akbar falls from the horse. He called out, Ya Abata, alayka minni salam. My salam goes to you, father. They say Hussein started to run out of the tents of Karbala towards the battlefield. He threw himself on the body of Ali al-Akbar. وَوَدَعَ خَدَّهُ عَلَى خَدِّهِ. He placed his face on the face of Ali al-Akbar. Just imagine this scene as this father is speaking to his child in these final moments. Maybe Ali is dragging his feet on the ground and on the sands of Karbala. He started to speak to Ali al-Akbar, Ya Ali, ala dunya ba'daka al-afa. I don't want this world after you. This world is worth nothing to me after this, Ya Ali. They say that slowly Hussein started to speak to Ali al-Akbar as he breathed his last breaths in the plains of Karbala. And then the narrator says, I watched Hussein grab his child and take his child back towards the tents as the feet of Ali al-Akbar were dragging on the sands of Karbala. And he continued
continue to repeat to himself, Hussein, Ya Ali, amma ans faqad istarahta min hammid dunya. Ya Ali, you went and you left the griefs and the difficulties of this world. Wa baqiya abuk, but you left your father behind. This old father of yours has to go through all of these masa'ib. As Hussein slowly drags the body of his child all the way to the back of the tents, he places the body of his child in the back of the tents, and you can imagine that at one point Zainab must have made her way behind the tents to sit with the child of her brother and speak to Ali al-Akbar of the masa'ib that are to come on the 10th of Ashura. Ala la'natullah ala al-qawmi al-zalimin. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْغَلَبٍ يَنْغَلَبُونَ. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants us the chance and the tawfiq to be amongst the true followers of the Ahlul Bayt, inshaAllah. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants the hajat and the hawa'ij of all of those who are here, all of those who are part of other communities taking part in the Majlis of Abu Abdullah, inshaAllah. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants all of those who are sick and ill health and afiyah, inshaAllah. And finally, last but not least, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He hastens the return of our beloved 12th Imam bin Nabi wa alih. Rahimallahu man qara'a al-Fatihata ma'a as-salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ya Hussein.